and I need to do something else. Like, I got to do something else. And he pulled out his wallet and he's like, well, Bubba, you were a farmer and you know I sell weed. So if you grow it, I'll sell it. So over the next 30, 90 days, I'm reading about Prop 215 and the history of that. And it was just like so inspiring because in 96, not Prop 215, but the original one in 96, it started with cannabis as medicine. And then it was very clear from what had been documented to fast forward 11 years at this point, it has value, efficacy in medicine. Like, undoubtedly, people who are at life's end, and it brings them comfort. And so it was like, oh, it's real. Like, really quickly, in a really, like, dire straits time financially for myself, for the businesses, for my family, I realized, oh, my God, like, fucking weed is wonderful. And look at this avenue. And so I remember I called my dad from the dealership and I said, oh, hey, this is like, things are not great. And I need to do something. And I realized, I said, you have a basement. I have a basement. I'm going to grow some weed. And so I'd spent the next 90 days then. And of course he supported that. And he's like retired farmer with a basement. And so we did our thing in the basement.
How many lights in each basement?
Oh, just like 2 in one and 1 in another.
But you get what, $4,000 a pound back then, 30.
Well, it was like, yeah, like Harborside became 90. Like I always joke, Harborside from 2009ish, 10ish, bought 99.9% of everything we grew to 2015.
Wow.
Yeah, or maybe like 13. And I say, oh, and then we smoked the rest. And so the other, 10th of a percent.
Yeah, go ahead.
But we went from 2 lights. We never got very big. And so fast forward from when we started in the basement to then when we ended up in the detached garage to then we ended up with a small warehouse in the Central Valley. Things are going smoothly with Harborside. My brother-in-law, another team member's name I will say today, Khalid Al-Nasser, was infatuated at a young age with hash. He really pushed me initially, like first harvest, making hash with it. So we've been making flowers and we've been making hash from our trim and then eventually BHO in bulk for Harborside. From literally the basement all the way through to today, our farming is Clean Green certified. And it was a program that Harborside supported and basically kind of spawned with Chris Van Hook, who runs Clean Green certified.
Which anybody who's like in that era, and I went over this with Josh, there wasn't much testing and or people trying to put forward clean product and Clean Green certified or whatever at 2013-14. So for the fact that they grabbed that bull by the horns and we're kind of moving along, considering as it is as far as time is concerned, that really is ahead of its era.
Yeah, it was ahead. Our first certification was in 2010, and we've kept it consistent through then.
What does Clean Green certified entail?
So essentially what Chris Van Hook did was he's an attorney doing USDA organic certifications for farms in California, and I think in maybe a few other states. So what he did was he just copied what he does for USDA organic farming. Go to a farm, go through the checklist. They report on everything that they do at that farm and how they do it. If they're not fucking liars, you get the truth. If it fits the USDA's program, then Chris Van Hook is the one who, basically does that process.
Which is really cool because I think that's unique for the time. And look, Harborside, I think there's different, opinions on, pros and cons. No doubt about it. They're pioneers. But, at that time, guys would maybe get one COA and then, shop that around is like every batch was under that COA. But nobody was going out to the farms. Like I don't think that existed anywhere at the time.
And Harborside really, spawned that with Chris Van Hook. Chris Van Hook probably at the counter, like, hey, I do certifications. Like what? Like, what are we doing? And so I think Rick and Steve D'Angelo, Rick Frommer, Steve D'Angelo, some of those original people that are really like the heart and soul of what Harborside was at its origin. They said, heck yeah, Chris, like, let's do something. And so we can, for the farmers who go into that program, who make us flour and bulk concentrates, we can say this one is Clean Green. And they did a really, really huge service to the patient then. They said, we will pay you $100 more for each pound that you grow if it's Clean Green certified.
We're coming all the way back full circle. I think that's where it's going. Yeah.
Yeah. So Harborside leaned in and paid more for things that they knew were grown properly. That inspector would come out, do the soil samples, shoot the shit, go over your application, which you filled out every year for changes, and which pressed you, by the way. And it's unfortunate we're not going to say the brands, the brand.
It's a free speech.
So I just don't like
I don't
the thing.
curtail anybody's speech.
What,
I generally try not to, but free speech, man. Throw them around.
No. I was just saying the Raw Garden. I was trying not to say that.
Oh,
shit.
your brand.
No, I'm not saying anybody else's brand except for the ones that I've seen as clean and good operators. I'm willing to say those.
Right.
Can we say them?
Say them all.
Fucking Friendly Farms is doing a good job procuring. Classics is doing a wonderful job procuring. And then we'll stop there and keep talking about this story because we'll bring that back up because there's some super good operators.
No, I want to get to all that.
The operators, there's operators and brands in California that like vapes were always great. Right. Inspectors visiting me in like 2012 for our annual review. So he says, "Is there anything that like Clean Green can do for you?" And I'm like, "Well, you could like spread the word a little bit better about what you guys are and like what it means because." This is like a pain in the butt every year, and I love seeing you, Mr. Truman. Our inspector every year was Truman forever, and he's an awesome guy. And he says, "What can we do for you? More marketing." And Truman, we just bought some closed-loop extraction equipment, and I need to fill it like regularly. So if you know any really good Clean Green farmers that you can link me with, please. And he's like, "Oh, I probably shouldn't say anything, but I'm going to this farmer." And he's the most amazing farmer, and he farms like so much citrus. And he tells me all about the citrus guy. And I'm like, "And you're going there next?" And he's like, "Yeah." I said, "Well, can you tell him that we bought this equipment and I really need to fucking fill it? And I would really just like to make concentrates that are Clean Green certed." He's like, "We don't certify extraction." And I was like, "I know, but we'll get there." Anyway, citrus guy turns out to be good people. So he's one of the founders of Raw Garden. We didn't come together immediately other than like, holy shit, this guy in 2000 and mid-2000s is like, he converted an acre of his greenhouse into growing sun-grown flower. He's like a fucking, and he's
at that time, like the guys have acres now, but it was not a lot of acres, maybe a few up the hill, but that was a pretty rare thing to see back then, hence the pricing.